All right. So let's move ahead. I want to start with your playbook and take stock of your progress from last week, the week before break.
Yeah.
So just a couple of questions to elicit your reflection. What was effective in your work last week, the week before break, and how did it impact student learning?
The week before break was all about rounding out the phase of the year around IP. And so ensuring that 90% of our teachers were on track with independent practice so that we can, this week we're setting everybody up for modeling. So that was framed with staff this morning in huddle. And then we kick off modeling PD tomorrow. So the week before break, the weeks leading up to break, it was real-time. My biggest focus was real-time feedback around IP.
Got it. So would you say that what was the impact of your real-time feedback and any other key actions that you had?
I would say that like every teacher is proficient in IP, or like 90% plus. I would say the biggest gaps is consistency, and so that's why real-time feedback was, I think, a highest leverage move, because it reminded teachers that they need to have a point of IP in every single lesson. And I was able to name that for them through real-time feedback.
Great. And what did not work well for you last week? Any gaps in the work that you were trying to accomplish with teachers?
Yeah, so the week before break was when we had the off-track meetings for IA1 results. And both the physics teacher and the English, so both Kaplan and English 11, I would say those were tough meetings. Whereas I thought they'd be more like black and white. Here, let's go in, let's put you on an action plan. They were not that simple. The action plans were tough to implement. I think we're okay with English 11, Kaplan, not so much.
Any, those are tough meetings to have.
Yeah.
Good that you had them.
Yeah.
Right? And given the conversations, are there any steps that you need to take to follow up, knowing that those were tougher meetings?
So, well, one is, I mean, Van Milligan, we have an action plan, and so I need to progress monitor both Lars and I really closely to make sure she's implementing that with fidelity. And then the other teacher is a little bit tougher. He has decided to continue at KDC, but he is asking for like a lot of exceptions, and so Jess and I are working through like what is going to like keep him here, because we think that's the best thing for kids, but also like not lower our bar so much that our kids aren't learning. And so Jess and I have that on our agenda for tomorrow.
Great. All right, excellent. So last week in Van Milligan's class, we identified a gap around monitoring and responding to student errors. And from some observations I was doing this morning in some other classes, I think there's some trending gaps there with some teachers and how they're monitoring. So I'd like us to narrow our focus there today. Based on what you're seeing and what you monitored last week in classrooms, are there any specific gaps in monitoring that you're seeing right now, and how teachers are monitoring student work?
Yes, for sure. I think that there's probably about 30% of our teachers, I can tell you which ones too, will go into IP and then they will not have the exemplar in hand. So they don't always know what they're looking for, so they're monitoring aimlessly, basically. And so I think the modeling PD will support with that today, but I do think that's the biggest gap. I think the two biggest gaps are, one, either they're not monitoring, or two, they're monitoring aimlessly because they don't have a strong exemplar in hand.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as we've talked about earlier, seeing that they're not necessarily, they don't have the exemplar in hand, and they're not necessarily fixing the issues and ensuring that students...
They're not responding to the gaps.
Yeah, they're not responding to the gaps. They might call out the gap, but they aren't necessarily ensuring that students fix it.
Yeah.
Great. So...
Whose class did you get into this morning?
I got into AMH. I got into Carlisle and Bakes.
And that was a trend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Carlisle, I think there were some issues with it. I would attribute it back to like not being targeted and responding to error. But it was kind of how he was allocating time, and he was going over a mastery quiz, just like every question, and wasn't necessarily
but it goes back to that same
targeting anything, nor being responsive to student data. So it was a very blind process. Yeah. Okay, so let's go into some classrooms to see this, and let's take a few minutes to set that up. What classroom should we go see?
Let's go see AMH first.
Okay. Let's go see AMH, and then is there another classroom that we might be able to see?
We could see Delina.
Delina, okay.
Which is Comp 10.
All right, and AMH is Algebra 2. Okay. So let's go see those rooms together. When we're in those classrooms, what are the specific teacher actions that you want to see, and what are the specific, we'll start there. What are the specific teacher actions you want to see?
Well, so those are 2 brand new teachers.
Yep.
So I think number 1, I want to see them implementing everything we've done from Strong Start, which they both should be on track. Number 2, I want to see them implementing IP effectively, and actively monitoring the IP.
Okay. And when they're actively monitoring, what should we look for there?
Ideally, an exemplar in hand, but they haven't had the modeling PD yet, so.
Yep.
But they should not be like walking around aimlessly. They should be naming what the kids should. They should be naming the labs and what the kids should be looking. What they should be looking for.
Yeah, and then let's also look for how they're responding to student errors. How they're responding and fixing student errors. All right, great. All right, so when we're in the classroom, let's look at student papers and then give real-time feedback at the point of teacher error. So let's see what we're seeing on student work. And today we're going to focus on, based on what we've identified, we're going to focus on real-time feedback for stopping the show.
Yep.
All right, to address the student errors. And for process today, I'm going to model this, and I want you to pay attention to what works well in the model and what you think I could do better. And I have a script here that I'm going to use. So let's take a moment to go over the script and make any adjustments that might make most sense. So there are 2 versions, and we're going to use version 2, which is focused more on co-leading with the teacher in doing the modeling.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I picked co-leading as opposed to just straight up leading it, because I think just based on where staff are and the culture that I think this might be the more effective approach to doing the modeling real-time feedback.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So any adjustments that you want to make to the script?
Nope. Looks
Okay.
good.
Awesome. So let's head out we'll start with Ox class.
Great.
Then I'm looking for this form right here, the fraction exponent form. Does that make sense? All right. You guys are on your own. We're doing independent practice. Starting with number 1. Ready, set, go. Great job working, everybody, and great job, Jesus, who's looking back at the other side of the page to remember the rules. All right, guys, I'm gonna come around and check your work for the whole first table. If you have the wrong rule, I'm gonna write R on your paper. If you have the wrong answer, I'm gonna write A. And if everything is right, then I'll put a check.
Kitchens, we're gonna stop the show right now. We're seeing a couple of errors that we want to make sure we address, and we're gonna take a look at. Sorry, what was your name? What's your name? Zarina?
Zaria.
Zaria. Thank you, Zaria. We're gonna look at Zaria's work to see what success looks like, and then identify the gap that we're seeing in your work so we can fix it. We're good. All right, so Mr. Ock, what are we saying that Zaria is doing well here that we want to make sure we're highlighting?
So for problem number 1, she got the right answer. And the way that she did that is she took the index of the radical and she made that into the denominator of the exponent, following the key point on the back of the page which says the denominator of the exponent equals the index of the radical.
What's the error that we're seeing in student work?
I saw this a few times. People wrote x to the third as their answer.
Got it. Okay. And so, Zaria, can we go back to you? Can you talk us through how your work is correct and why what Mr. Ock is saying is not?
So you wrote x to the 1/3, and an incorrect answer I've been seeing is x to the third. And so we're asking, what is the difference between these two answers and why is yours correct?
Thanks for your answer there. Is that as precise an answer that we want to see, Mr. Ryan?
So I really like that you described the rule, but specifically in this case, can you tell me what is the index of the radical and how did you find it? Nice. And where did you look for it? Outside the radical. Awesome.
Great. Nice work. So let's just stand what the gap is that we want to make sure everyone's fixing.
You want me to restate it?
Yep.
So I saw some people who took the number 3 and just made that the exponent, but what they forgot is that the index of the radical should become the denominator of the exponent. So remember, when you see the index and you're converting to exponent form, put that in the denominator.
Great. So go ahead and fix your papers now to make sure that you're matching the successful answer that Zara just shared. Go ahead.
After you're done with correcting your answer for the first one, finish the rest of that table doing numbers 2 and 3, and I'm going to come around and check your work. And keep working through this page, guys. After you finish the first table, keep going. You should be trying to finish the whole page.
Okay. So what did you notice I did in my real-time feedback that was effective?
Yeah, I saw a lot of great stuff. One, I appreciated you jumped right in to track the same data that he was looking for, should have been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you could jump into a conversation with him and asking him, what are you looking for right now? But you also had context. What is the biggest error? So you conversed with the teacher on that. Then you worked with the teacher to stop the show, and you did a show call with student work, highlighting the biggest error. And then I think you stamped learning with both the kids and the teacher at the end. You made sure that the kids understood where the biggest gap was, and then you went up to the teacher and you stamped with the teacher the process that you did to make sure that he was following and could implement it in the next period.
Great. Is there anything that you think I could have done better or differently to make it more effective?
One question I had is I think he he wasn't able to see a big part of the classroom
Mm-hmm.
when he was identifying the misconception. He only saw like 4 or 5 kids.
Yeah.
So my only wondering is like, was that the highest leverage misconception happening? Maybe it was. Maybe he had enough data from other classes. I don't
Yeah.
know. But that was my only wondering.
Yeah. So the reason I stopped him when I did is I think he had checked 5 student papers and had stopped on the same thing.
All of them.
On all of them. And so at that point,
You had enough data.
yeah, that was a trending error that he needed to address.
Yeah, great. Thank you for the clarification.
And I would, but what I wasn't sure about was his lap, whether or not he was checking the high students first.
Yes.
Or if his lap was random.
Well, my other question was he going to do a lap before you went up and talked to him? Do we know?
I prompted him
Yeah,
to
that's what I
name his
thought.
lap and then do his lap.
Yeah. So we're not sure if that was part of his.
Right. But what I said to him is like, you're monitoring for compliance. You have it. What's your
Yes.
first lap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Cool. Okay. So now we're gonna go down to
Delina?
Delina's.
Yeah.
You have the script in front of you.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a moment to go through it and make sure that it's tight before we go in?
What do you mean? Like.
What? So pull out the script.
Yep.
Why don't we just like quickly role play it? What are you gonna say to Delina
Okay.
so that we're ready to go?
If she's an IP.
Yep.
What are you looking for right now? What is the biggest error you see?
Yep.
Based on that error, which student is doing it really well?
Yep.
I'm going to come in and do a stop the show to really highlight this gap for students as a model for you, so that you can use it for the rest of the day with your other classes. Is that okay with you?
Great.
And then class, the biggest error we're seeing is I'd like to pull up the students' work because they got it right. How does this student, what does the student do to get this right?
Yeah. And what student should you be calling on when you ask the student to analyze the exemplar?
The student who did it, whose student's work.
Yeah, or a high student, another student who's doing it effectively.
Okay. Can we make it any stronger?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want everyone to fix their papers now to match the student's work. Delina, what are we going to be looking for now that we've clarified that with the students? Great. Fast forward. What did you see me do today? What was the impact of that?
Great. Perfect. You ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, sir. I guess I am. So if I'm marking up, pause everybody, in my annotations, for characterization, the first thing I'm going to notice is the difference between the way he's talking in his head and the way he's talking to his teacher. So here, he's already using language that's a little bit crass, right? He says the word hell. I'm going to note that. Crass means like inappropriate. And yet, when he's talking to his teacher, he's using that word sir. So he still shows respect. That's something that's worth noting. Okay. All I want you guys to do this time around is just be underlining everything on the left side here. We're going to come back in and write more stuff on the margin. So anything about his character. Here we go. He started going into this nodding routine. You never saw anybody nod as much in your life as old Spencer did. You never knew if he was nodding a lot because he was thinking and all, or just because he was a nice old guy that didn't know his ass from his elbow. What did Dr. Thurmer say to you, boy? I understand you had quite a little chat. Yes, we did. We really did. I was in his office for around 2 hours, I guess. What'd he say to you? Oh, well, about life being a game and all, and how you should play it according to the rules. He was pretty nice about it. I mean, he didn't hit the ceiling or anything. He just kept talking about life being a game and all, you know. Life is a game, boy. Life is a game that one plays according to the rules. Yes, sir. I know it is. I know it. Game, my ass. Some game. If you get on the side where all the hot shots are, then it's a game, all right. I'll admit that. But if you get on the other side, where there aren't any hot shots, then what's a game about it? Nothing. No game. Has Dr. Thurmer written to your parents yet? Old Spencer asked. He said he was going to write them Monday. Have you yourself communicated with them? No, sir, I haven't communicated with them, because I'll probably see them Wednesday night when I get home. And how do you think they'll take the news? Folks, let's zoom in really close right here, because he narrates a lot in this last passage. Well, they'll be pretty irritated about it, I said. They really will. This is about the 4th school I've gone to. I shook my head. I shake my head quite a lot. Boy, I said. I also say, boy, quite a lot. Partly because I have a lousy vocabulary, and partly because I act quite young for my age sometimes. I was 16 then.
So I'm confused because he's not modeling what he's asking them to do.
I act like I'm about
And like how the kids are doing it.
because I'm 6'2".
So that's the feedback
And I
I
have
give
gray
him.
hair. I
But
really do. The one side of my head.
I want to see if he gets the end of this and he's like, okay, now this was kind of a waste of time.
So what's your next move?
Everybody says that.
Well, it depends on what he does. So what I'm thinking he's going to do is at the end he's going to be like, okay, now take a minute and go through and make sure you. And then I think I need to tell him that was a waste of time to read it to them.
Why is it a waste of time?
Because they're not, half of them, more than half didn't do the skill that he told them to do.
Right. Yeah.
Nor did he do it. That's right.
So the other thing,
1 minute, right below that, one sentence. Guys, we really need to work on our context. So the first thing I want you to do right now is jot down one sentence. What happened leading up to
this is a good
scene?
time.
Include everything a reader would need to know to understand what is going on there. So, 1 minute, silent solo. Give me one sentence. What is happening, Pamela, leading up to this scene? Go ahead and get started. First go. Just reading. Context. And then what we go back right now. And we have them on the line for characterization.
And they're going to do it. Okay, so what were you like for the labs?
Mostly that reveals his behavior patterns. So we're using the acronym STEAL for speech, thoughts, you know, those action flows. Mostly we're here, and I'm looking for them to highlight anything, ways and guiding questions that I'm going to come forward.
So you're looking for the highlight specific words going to characterization.
Yep. And his opinions on the world and on happiness.
Can I partner please track this and then like where the gaps are and close it all together?
All right, pencils down in 3, 2, 1. And let's get everybody tracking me wherever you are. Let's go ahead and wrap those thoughts up. Can I get one volunteer, please? What's the context? What's happening right before this scene with Mr. Spencer? What do we need to know? Brenda.
He kind of has, like, he's saying something, but he has different thoughts about it.
So that's what's happening in the scene. I want to know what's happening right before this. Leslie.
He was getting kicked out of Tennessee Spencer.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. So, folks, context is what we need to know to understand this scene, right? I need to know that he's getting kicked out of the school, right? And he came to see this guy. This guy's his history teacher. So, Brenda, yours will come up to play now. All right, flip back to the front page, please. And now, let's do our second read. We're going to annotate more intentionally. So, everybody, step 1, we read the passage. Step 2, we wrote one sentence explaining context. Now we're going to do step 3 and 4. Go back through like you saw me do here. And thinking about our guiding questions. What do we learn about his character? What are his opinions? What is his situation? Just tell me about this guy as a personality. I want you to go back through on the left side, annotate, underline, circle, anything that sounds like his character, and then write me a word or a phrase in the margin that matches up with that. Are we clear on the directions right now? Giselle, what are we about to do? I can hear you. What are we looking for though? What are we going to underline? Characterization. Remember our acronym STEAL. Look for how he thinks how he speaks. Okay, let's take about 3-4 minutes to go back through on our own. I'm going to be circling around with Ms. Mendez, timers on the board. I'm looking for anything that you guys are underlining with matching words or phrases in the margin. So let's do 3 minutes on the clock. Go ahead and get started. Everyone, 2 more minutes. Third period, really quickly, please make sure this comes back with you tomorrow and we'll pick up. And chapter 5 is our homework for tonight. You guys have, hold on Leslie, everybody. We wrote this in our agendas already. Chapter 5 needs to be read.
But I do, like, for remainder of the classes, I do think that they need multiple outcasts and like what exemplary annotations look like, and so I would just show up when you see a really good one, I would put it up on the document and highlight, why is this good? What does it do? Like, I would do 2 or 3 of those in the practice part of the lesson, because then there's constantly seeing how to do it well.
Yeah.
Because right now, it's all over the place.
Right, right.
So-
And absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
This is our absolute first go, and so
Yeah.
I'm definitely kind of gauging right off the bat like where everybody is.
Yeah.
Because we've worked with characterization before, but not with this text.
Yeah.
But it's happening all week, so.
Yeah, and I think, but the more they see, like, here's one that I want to point out that's strong,
Mhm.
what makes it strong, and have them point that out. Okay, now go do that on your own paper,
Absolutely.
over and over again.
Yeah,
I think-
okay.
Yeah,
That's where we'll start with our class tomorrow.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you.